Now I'm going to demonstrate how to take a soil sample. This is generally going to happen in veggie patches or anywhere where children spend time, or pets, or chooks, because of course chooks could also be contaminated. Their eggs can be contaminated as a result of being exposed to lead contaminated soil. Now, more often than not, a house built before 1990 will be a red flag, especially if it's a timber board house, because the paint on the timber may contain lead. So with soil sampling, you'll often do it around the house, especially in the areas where the children spend time close to the weatherboards. However, another one will be a veggie patch, because you want to make sure the soil that you're growing your vegetables in isn't contaminated. The first thing is to make sure you've got everything: your scraper, which I've already cleaned with an alcohol swab, the container from the lab, and of course the chain of custody. Now with the chain of custody, the sample number must match the sample number that you write on the container. I also like to include the date, what type of sample it is. Soil sample from veggie patch is how I'd write it on this container. And of course the number. How many samples did I take in the house and which number this was? That's all described on the chain of custody. Open up the lid. In fact, it's often good to put both of the gloves on, just to be sure that you're not going to cross-contaminate the sample. Then with my clean spatula, I'm just going to fill up the container. You want at least 1/5 of a cup, which is pretty much most of the container. So the top 2 centimeters is what you're aiming for. So don't dig deeper than that. I've filled that container. I'm then going to place on the lid, and I'll double check that the description on the container matches what's on the chain of custody, so there's no misunderstanding. Now it's the same when you're taking a sample for mulch. You may want to find, for example, I had this bush mulch in the property, and then I started noticing there were paint chips on some of the bush mulch. So what can happen is they actually pull down a house, an old house, and then they cut down the timber of the weatherboards and make it into mulch. Now this can be contaminated, so you may even want to get the small amounts of the bark, etc., from the mulch and put it in here and test it. The last time we did this at a similar house that had this type of mulch, the levels of lead were significantly elevated, especially if you've got chickens whose eggs could be contaminated as a result of that.